Hi guys, and welcome to another video. Today I'd like to talk about the Elder Races and what we know about them, compiling information from both Guild Wars 1 and 2. But first, a quick overview of who they are. The Elder Races consist of the Mursaat, the Seers, Forgotten, Jotun, and Dwarves. All of them except the Jotun really had a rather prominent role to play in Guild Wars 1. They all date back to at least the last rise of the Elder Dragons 10,000 years ago, where they had access to all forms of magic completely unrestricted, and in some cases that magic was far more powerful than anything any of the races would receive from the gods many years later. The reason for that is that magic was sort of seeped out into the world from the Bloodstones, which were split into specific forms of magic. Speaking of the Bloodstone, we know that all 5 of those races were sort of involved. In this video I'll cover 3 of the 5, the Mursaat, Seers and Forgotten, and I'll cover the other 2 in another video so that this one doesn't get too long. So let's start with the Mursaat, as it's one of the races we know the most about. The first we hear about the Mursaat is when the Bloodstone was created. At this point in time, after they had agreed to give their magic to the Seers along with all of the other races, they devised a way to become invisible, or out of phase with the world of Tyria, and before giving their magic to the Bloodstone, they betrayed the other 4 races and hid from the Elder Dragons. Once the dragons fell asleep, we are told that the Mursaat warred with the Seers, which I'll touch more upon when we talk about that race. The next time we hear anything about the Mursaat is when a human exile from Kryta, Saul D'Alessio, stumbles across a city of massive towers reaching up to the heavens. Saul was close to death when he found this city, and was saved by these mysterious beings. Due to this, and being awed by what he saw, he went back to Kryta as a changed man. He managed to set up a religious cult, the White Mantle, by spreading the false doctrine of the Unseen Ones, the Mursaat, and eventually they managed to wrest control of Kryta from the kingdom's disgraced royalty. The reason the Mursaat became known as the Unseen Ones is because they would only reveal themselves to their most devout followers, and controlled everything from behind the scenes. I assume that they used the magic they developed that allows them to phase out of Tyria to hide and show themselves to their devout followers. When the Char attacked Kryta, Saul and his White Mantle went to confront the invasion force, and when the tide of battle looked to be going in the Char's favour, Saul led a small group of his elite force to assassinate the leaders, in the hope of confusing them long enough for the Krytans to mount a counterattack. This plan worked, and as anticipated, the Char turned on Saul and his small group. In this moment he called and prayed to the Mursaat, and to his surprise they showed themselves, obliterating the Char army, saving Kryta and cementing the White Mantle and Mursaat as powers to not be challenged. Shortly after all of this, the first campaign from Guild Wars 1 picks up, and in short, the player undoes the mystery behind the Mursaat and exposes them as a race of spellcasters that were using their influence to stop a prophecy from coming to fruition, a prophecy that spelled the doom of them at the hands of the Titans. Needless to say, they failed to prevent the prophecy from being fulfilled and were, as far as we know at this point in time, driven to extinction. Of course, this may not be the case, given we have seen some Mursaat-styled looking models, the Exalted, in the trailer for Heart of Thorns. Now, onto the Seers. We know very little about this race, but as they have quite important interaction with the Mursaat, we'll cover them now. The Seers were an enigmatic race of magical beings, and they were the creators of the Bloodstone, and along with the Forgotten, Jotun and Dwarves, were hidden by Glint, but I'll cover that when I talk about the Forgotten. Once the Elder Dragons had returned to slumber, they ended up warring with the Mursaat because of the latter's betrayal. However, the Mursaat had a very powerful ability, the same ability they used to wipe out the Char invasion force, and the Seers just couldn't cope. Eventually they managed to find a way to protect themselves from this powerful magic, but it was too late. They ended up losing the war. In the first campaign of Guild Wars 1, one of the few surviving Seers helped the player gain defense against the Mursaat to allow them to fight them and eventually bring about the prophecy. Unfortunately, this is all we know about this race, and personally I'd love to find out some more about both the Seers and the Mursaat, especially as they are similar in features. They both appear genderless, they sort of float around rather than walk, and they both had very powerful magic. Were they maybe different subspecies of the same race? Interesting thought, and probably something we will never find out. Now, onto the Forgotten. This race we know a fair bit about. They're an upright, serpentine race, and during Guild Wars 1, we are told that they were brought to Tyria by the gods from the mists to watch over it while they transformed it. However, in Guild Wars 2, we find out that they were around during the Elder Dragon Rise, and whilst the gods did use them as custodians during the early years of their arrival, they had an important role to play during the last rising. Even though they are serpentine, it is believed that they are not related to the Crate or the Naga. Whether or not they come from the mists, we don't know. They are known to have used magic that could not be corrupted by the Elder Dragons, and because of this, were able to perform a ritual that severed the connection between Glint, formerly Glaust, from her Elder Dragon Master, Kraukotoric. In turn, Glint then hid the Elder races, except for the Mursaat, who phased out of Tyria, from the dragons until they fell back into slumber. This, coupled with the Bloodstone, allowed these races to survive and keep a store of uncorrupted magic. There is evidence that the Forgotten were spread throughout continental Tyria, as they are said to have warred with the Char in the Blaze Ridge Mountains, as well as architectural ruins pointing to other locations in Tyria and Cantha, showing us that they had a wide range of settlements. In the year 0 AE, the Forgotten aided the human gods in their war against Abaddon, and when he was defeated, some of them acted as his wardens within the Realm of Torment. This, coupled with humanity starting to become the more dominant race on Tyria, the remaining Forgotten retreated to the Crystal Desert, becoming custodians of Glint, and helping with the rites of Ascension, which allowed those that successfully passed to see them as Mursaat, regardless of which phase they were in. Currently, we do not know the state of the Forgotten's existence. The last we heard, they were still living in the Crystal Desert. However, we have had some recent glimpses of Forgotten lore and Ascension in the Living Story Season 2. That about covers what we know about these three elder races. I'm hopeful that we will get some more lore about the Mursaat in the expansion, maybe a little bit of information about the Forgotten too, but we will have to wait and see what Heart of Thorns brings us. Anyway, I shall end the video on that, and in the next one I will cover the Dwarves and the Jotun. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and until next time, take care and happy gaming.